most notes really, but I have scrawled on the flip chart a piece of paper. Don't worry if you can't read them, no one else can read my writing either, but I will try and explain as we go through as to what the story is. So, I was asked basically about finance, local meeting, area meeting in particular perhaps, and maybe a bit on national, so I'll talk about money. So if you're allergic to money, now's your time to escape. So I think probably the best place to start is actually, because this is a bit complex, so it's maybe to start with the structure of where we are. So Eastbourne local meeting is one of 9 local meetings within Sussex East area meeting. So here we are, here are the others.
Can you tell me who the others are?
Sure, Bexhill, Hastings, Hurstman Zoo, who have a bit of complication, Lewis, Polegate, Rye, Seaford, Buckfield. So it covers, it sort of basically covers East Sussex, except that Ditchling, which is 1 mile into East Sussex, actually comes into Sussex West, which is why we have to be called Sussex East, not East Sussex. Just complexity. Hurstman Zoo has a strange position that it has its own sort of fund of money for historic reasons to do with its establishment back in the mists of time. Something called the Hurstman Zoo Estate, which we'd need to get the Charity Commission's permission if we were to do anything with the capital, like the buildings or the land. And where there is some sort of expectation that any money it generates, the first call on that money is maintenance of the buildings at Hurstman Zoo. And Hurstman Zoo has not only a meeting house, it also has a rental house and 2 rental maisonettes. So this is actually a source of income. Anyway, so that's the local meetings, and obviously you need to finance the way, some of the basics of how the meeting runs. I'll come on to where the money goes in a moment. But in legal terms, you are just branches of an entity, Sussex East Area Meeting, which is the charity. So years ago when I joined the society, no one really talked about the charity. We had benefited from charity law, but charity law was pretty lenient in those days. The charity law has been tightened up. It seems to be ratcheted every year almost. They come in more provisions as to how charities can be run. Clearly, the powers that be are very worried that charities might get up to lots of very naughty things if they didn't closely regulate them. In particular, about 20 years ago, it was decided that all charities needed to have trustees. Well, they thought they should mention charities before, but have trustees and produce sets of accounts for the whole area. And basically, the charity, it should be clear what the charity was. It wasn't the Charity Commission that said area meetings should be charities. Religious Society of Friends said, okay, we have this issue. Charity law is now coming much more formalised. Everything should be run by trustees, etc. One option is that Britain Yearly Meeting. So all the bakers in Britain could be one charity, which is really, in some ways, how we think about ourselves. And the people who might have actually had to try and operate Britain Yearly Meeting as one charity said, help, no, that's totally impossible, far too complex. And anyway, if you look at our business method, it is actually the area meeting, which is in many ways the core of it. In particular, you are members of an area. If you're a member, you are a member of an area meeting. Your membership is an area meeting. Area meetings are a very sort of key part in the governance structures of Quakers in Britain. And so it's decided that each area meeting should be a standalone charity with its own trustees, complying with charity law, producing accounts of the whole charity. I have heard Paul Parker, the recording clerk, or CEO of Quakers in Britain, saying that he wonders that if we'd had a crystal ball 20 years ago, maybe we would have we would have actually just set up one charity, because the complexities of having 60 odd area meetings, each running as charities across the country, are quite something, and are concerns that may become quite parochial. There were also concerns when we set this up that actually having trustees isn't entirely consistent with the Quaker business method of decisions being taken at meetings of worship and church affairs, at local meeting level, at area meeting level, higher levels. And so, but there's no option. If you're set up as a charity, you have to have trustees, and those trustees have to have the last word on financial decisions, in particular, but actually decisions around the running of the charity. not around religion, fortunately, but around the physical running of the charity. And so friends at the time, quite a few friends at the time thought this was objectionable, but basically there's no alternative. The alternative would not to be covered by charity law, and that would bring a whole host of its own problems. So, Sussex East Area Meeting, like everyone else in the country, set up a body of trustees, replacing the previous Finance and Property Committee of the area meeting. And we have 3 trustees in this room, me, Trish, and Aileen. So there are currently 7 in total, drawn from across the local meetings. And one crucial thing is that the trustees are ultimately responsible for what the 9 local meetings get up to. We're actually quite a trusting bunch, and so we do actually leave local meetings very much to run themselves financially, with 1 or 2 caveats. Firstly, we have to, at the end of the year, produce a set of accounts for the Charity Commission to publish and such like. The yearly meeting likes to see them as well. On all the activities of the area meetings, all the component parts of the area meeting. So, like a number of other area meetings, we've said, well, the easy way to do that is actually have one central accounting system. And so actually everything that happens locally is accounted for in our central accounting system called Paxton. Not the world's most wonderful accounting system, but it sort of works. And that requires a team of treasurers to sort of keep this all rolling. So we have a treasury team of 4 or 5 of us to do that. But it's also an advantage that actually, because the Quaker Faith and Practice doesn't place many requirements on local meetings, not compared to area meetings. Most of the responsibilities are formally with area meetings. But every local meeting does have to have a clerk and a treasurer. If it doesn't have a clerk and a treasurer, it can't really function. Which, or in practice, what happens is the area meeting takes over the function until it gets a clerk and treasurer, which is exactly what happened in this meeting a few years ago. And I found myself temporarily treasurer of a really small meeting. In my position as treasurer of the area meeting. Fortunately, we found a clerk and treasurer, and everything is now restored to reality. So each of these meetings. But the thing is, because the treasurer, the treasurer of each of these local meetings provides our accountants who run the Paxton system for us. So we've extracted that out every month with a bank statement, which is annotated to say what the money went, where the money went, and where it came from. Where that's not obvious with the bank statement, and it goes. So that therefore is all loaded into the accounting system. And if anyone wants to see the accounting position, we can produce printouts. Which is sort of very helpful. What this does mean is that rather than having to have 9 people who can actually do bookkeeping, we only need 1 or 2 or 3 people who can do bookkeeping. Because everyone else, it's just a matter of acting as a post office, so to speak, to pass information to the centre, centre, I suppose, and obviously to write checks and run the bank account. But you don't need to be an accountant to do that. So, which is just as well, because the chances of us being able to find 9 people who do bookkeeping across the area meeting would be pretty slim. So there's also an advert say any of you could become local meeting treasurer. If you can run your own personal finances, you can probably run each more meetings' finances. Okay. And of course, each of these local meetings, in principle, has a bank account. And however, part of the charity law is that the trustees have to approve bank accounts. And the way things have got tightened up, we effectively have to approve the signatures of bank accounts, in that the change of signatories, the bank mandate is liable to require the trustees of area meeting to sign off. It depends on the bank on how strict they are. Some of them still are happy to look at a local meeting as an independent unit and to take assurances from the local officers, role holders, but not all. And as we all know, setting up bank accounts, changing bank mandates, such like gets ever more difficult. To the extent that actually one of these meetings, Polegate, doesn't have a bank account and actually uses the central bank account as its bank account. handful of transactions it has each year. The central treasurer is processed for them. Uckfield have now applied, now want to go down the same way. However, I think we would be very reluctant to have the meetings with meeting houses do that, of which there are 5, because there's a lot more work, as you know, if you're running a meeting house, than rather than if you're just like Uckfield meeting, it just hires a room. Okay. So, and then just to pick up the full picture, of course, our annual meeting is part of Britain Yearly Meeting, which also has financial needs. In particular, services Quaker Peace and Social Witness, which is our friends' witness in the world, as discerned by friends across the country through the process of meeting staffings, through Britain Yearly Meeting in session, and through committees of those bodies, of that body, that discerns what we should be doing in terms of witness in the world. There should have brought a pen, should have an important omission here. There's Quaker Life, which looks after the worship of the society, basically the running of the society, that encourages outreach, sorts out problems of governance and such like, and in particular now through local development workers. So there are about 25 local development workers across the country whose job is to help us keep going, and help us sort our problems, maybe help us thrive and become even better, larger and livelier meetings. And many of you may know Ruth Ordus, who is the local development worker in our region. They also, of course, have trustees. That's fairly fundamental omission, who are responsible for running Britain Yearly Meeting, and there is a certain tension. So, do you know what meeting for something is?
Not entirely, no.
Okay, it's a standing committee for, well, so the theory of the national constitution is that all important decisions are taken at an annual meeting, called Britain Yearly Meeting. But obviously it only happens once a year. And so for several hundred years we've had this sort of standing committee, which is comprised representatives from every area meeting. Now one from every area meeting, and a few other people. And they make until a few years ago, they took all the decisions, except if the decision was so important it had to be left to the yearly meeting. When they set up trustees, it started turning out that trustees actually started taking most of the decisions, and there is actually quite a tension between the two. Because anything that has a financial implication, trustees need to sign off on, and of course most things do have a financial implication ultimately if you look at them carefully enough. To the extent that people are now saying, what's the purpose of my meeting for sufferings anyway? And so we may be moving to a yearly meeting in session, a yearly meeting, sort of meeting throughout the year. I'm not here to talk about that, so that might be a future meeting for learning, to pick up on that one. But anyway, so as well as QPSW and Quaker Life, there are also various, probably about 15 staff whose job is just to actually help run Britain Yearly Meeting itself. The various activities need to keep it going. So it's quite an expensive organisation. I've got the figures here, but we may return to that. So that is the basic structure. I would say within the finances of Area Meeting, we actually have set up several separate funds. So there's obviously a general fund, like a basic fund. There's a property fund, whose job, and that funds repairs and maintenance work, which are funded at Area Meeting. So we need to step back and say, hang on, I thought Peaceful Meeting did pay for its own repairs and maintenance. To which the answer is yes, but only the minor stuff. So the basic rule is anything that's external, structural, or involves serious electricity, is the responsibility of Area Meeting trustees, and is paid for by Area Meeting. Anything that is internal, particularly involves something that can be moved, is paid for locally. Which comes to the odd situation that the external painting is Area Meeting level and the internal painting is you guys. So basically, so a large part of the property expenditure across the Area Meeting is actually organised at Area Meeting level, paid for at Area Meeting level. Area Meeting trustees quite like it if the local meeting premises committee actually does most of the hard work. although when it's come to roofs, Tony Biggin, on behalf of the trustees, has been leading on that. But the roofs are a particular saga, which is as wonderful, has come to an end. Well, that's about other major things. No. And anyway, that data for when you're into a premises committee, we're now very glad that you do have a premises committee at Eastbourne. And the hope is that every local meeting should actually, although they're not required to, should have a premises committee. So we have the property fund, which is the largest fund within our funds. There's a people fund, so the pastoral and education fund, which is available to support friends who are having sort of educational opportunity, or who have a financial pastoral need as discerned by pastoral friends. So that has just a bit under 30,000 sitting in it in case of need. Property fund has 700,000. General fund 10,000 or so. And then we have this strange beast of the Hurst and Zoo estates, the Hurst and Zoo sort of doing their own things. So their big expenditure comes out of that pot rather than that one. And I think that's all the sort of standing funds, except that we also had a major project at Lewis, which had its own fund. And the idea being the Lewis project should be funded entirely by earmarked, by donations from friends, grants, grant-giving bodies, and such like, loans from local friends. And some spare was because part of the story is that when I became area meeting treasurer a bit over 8 years ago, our problem was we had more reserves than we really knew what to do with. Had about 600,000-700,000 in reserves, in investments, and in money in the banks. And so to justify that, that's when we set up the people fund to say actually, we do need some sort of earmarked provision for those sorts of needs. But actually, we also, when friends at Lewis said we want to do this major project to upgrade the building, make it more accessible, environmentally friendly, etc., sustainable, better fit the community, area meeting with encouragement of trustees, or vice versa, said yes, we've got some money. Go for that. And so effectively all the surplus reserve went to the Lewis project, which then overran spectacularly. Overran a bit in terms of time and cost, like we all do. I mean, we all watch grand designs on the television, but all of us are still surprised when the same story happens in our daily life. The standard thing that every building project will be 6 months late and 20% over budget. If you're lucky. So we now are much further. So I'll come to. We're not really so much in a position of having more reserves than we know what to do with. Because in fact, to calculate what reserves we need, we look at the value of our properties and say, well, a certain percentage of that value we should hold in reserve as a snide, isn't it? So if the roof needs replacing, we have the money. Okay, so before I move to my next highly helpful visual aid, questions so far? Okay, so this is meant to be where's the money come from, where's it go? So a bit more detail. And this is taken from area meeting figures for 2023. 2023 was not a usual year. Of course, there is no such thing as a usual year. There will be pandemics and this and that. But we have to start somewhere. So, and this is covering the money that is spent centrally and the money that is spent by local meetings and sticking them all together. Or rather, in this case, where it comes from, the money raised. And so anyway, I'll sort of give the position. So, in 2023, donation, I should say this excludes the Lewis development project. Which I have to keep that out of the way, because the figures are rather higher, and just totally distort the picture. So this is the standard running position, which of course is relevant going forward. And so in 2023, donations from friends came to around £28,000 across the area, on which we collected gift aid back of about £4,000. Looks a bit low, I suspect. No, I do wonder. Yeah, anyway, there might be some accounting quirk there, but still, 4,000 is still 4,000. So reminds you that if you're giving and you can gift aid and you aren't already gift aiding, please arrange to gift aid. Speak to your treasurer. or anyone else. So then local meetings, well, at least actually all of our local meetings now hire out, all our local meetings with premises, which there are 5, hire out their buildings to some extent. It has to be said that there's a limit to how many people will hire something in Hurstman Zoo, but they have amazingly actually managed to find somebody, which was thought to be impossible. But obviously Lewis, Eastbourne, Hastings, there's plenty of opportunity, except that in 2023, Lewis was not hiring out anything because we had a building project on, and the place was full of crawling with builders. And Hastings was only hiring for half the year because they had 2 floods. So actually that figure is lower than it should be by about at least 10,000. No year is a normal year. Our investments and interest gets us about 7,000. I should say we've sold about three quarters of our investments over the last few years on the basis that the money seemed to be more needed nearer to hand, and we wanted to get out in the market was in a good place rather than a bad place. The investment portfolio is an ethically screened investment portfolio, so no carbon, no guns, etc. And then, so one of the large elements of rental is we have, 2023, we have 4 rental properties. 3 of them at Hurstman Zoo, so part of that Hurstman Zoo estate I mentioned. The 4th one, as you know, I don't need to tell you, is here, Rich Cottage. And money from that goes into area meeting, goes straight to area meeting. Going forward, Lewis meeting will also be renting its flat out. However, that's not an immediate solution to any financial problems because for the next 3 years the money is going to be used to pay off the loans from local friends. So that's not going to be part of the story. So going forward, so the rental 30 is about figure. All of that comes to about 83,000. So you could say routine expenditure. You could say going forward, a bit more room hire, and that'd be pushing towards 90,000. On the top of that, we actually had an insurance payout of £17,000 for Hastings meeting. So that's in the accounts as well. And where does Eastbourne fit with that? So in Eastbourne, the donations were about 3,600, gift aid for about 150, room hire of about 6,600, coming to a bit over 10,000. Okay. So that's basically where the money comes from. So were we to think we didn't have enough money, how could we get more? Well, ultimately we'll get more from Lewis, but only after the loans are paid off in the next 3 years. So no more from rental. Investments and interest, can't really not getting much more for that. Room hire, yes, we hope we can boost that figure a bit. The donations and gift aid are really what would fill the picture if we had a deficit, which I'll come on to. So where it goes. This gets less and less legible as we go on. So again, the position 2023, the direct running costs of those rental properties I was just mentioning come to about £4,000. That's just managing the properties, maintaining them comes under a different heading. Insurance costs us about 10,000 a year, which is basically covering the 5 meeting houses plus employees' liability and that sort of thing. That has gone up massively in the last couple of years, mainly because the insurance companies have to pay us a lot of money because we managed to actually put a claim in for loss of earnings during the pandemic, which, a bit to our surprise, they paid. And then last year they've been paying out hand over fist to Hastings for the work at Hastings meeting. Some of it direct, so they actually paid a lot more than 17,000, just 17,000 through our books. The Quaker activities, communications, all sort of general stuff comes to about 6,000. Grants, including grants to Britain Yearly Meeting, comes to about 8,000. Children and young people got about 1,000. Salaries and wages and other cleaning costs. Salaries and wages is mainly to cleaners, although we do have children's work at Lewis. And most of our cleaning is done by cleaners who get a salary, but not all. We have contractors, we have contract staff doing it, comes to about 9,000. Utilities, gas, electric, water, etc., 16,000, as you'd expect, that's quite a big one. Repairs and maintenance came to 84,000, which you may pick up is actually more than the entire previous page. It was a heavy year. Well, the roof's here, part of the reason. Having had the floods at Hastings, this identified things, work we needed to do that was not paid for by the insurance company. But actually also the work paid for by insurance companies in that number as well. So actually it's probably I should have put 67 there. I should have put 67. Doesn't sound quite such a scary number. Then hall hire, 7,000, so that's for the 4 meetings that don't have their own premises, although actually Polgate uses Burnham Bound Cottage, so they don't pay anything. But Upfield, Seaford and Rye all hire rooms, and so they have to pay for it. 7,000. And we've got trustees, this is various financial systems, and in particular the auditors, the accounts for 2023, which so 10,000 is higher than usual. We normally have our accounts examined, which is a sort of a fairly low duty process, just to check the figures look about right, which it has been costing us less than 1,000 a year. However, with all the money coming into the Lewis project, we've gone over the threshold and to have a full audit, which costs us £6,000. So the cost of it, so that is unusually high. So the total cost of all this, after my adjustment for the Hastings insurance, comes to about 138,000. On which one has to say, well, the trustees' figure is a bit higher than it will be in an average year. Repairs and maintenance is also higher. I would normally, in the old days, I would have said it would be about 20, on an average year, it would be about 25,000 a year. Building costs have gone up, it's probably more like 45,000. So maybe, 2023 was a particularly heavy year. So still, okay. Nonetheless, the deficit in 2023 was about 55,000. So we're saying repairs and maintenance, maybe 20,000 higher than usual. Maybe everything, maybe say it's an unusually heavy year by 25,000. So really, that still looks like a deficit of 25 to 30,000. Are we panicking? Not yet. We still have about 400,000 in reserves, although some of that is earmarked for things like the People Fund, associated with Personal Zoo, where there are limitations on what we can do with it and such like. And you can't just keep running these things down forever, really. So we may get a bit more rental income coming in the future, a bit more high-end income, but ultimately, say maybe 25,000 is, the long-term deficit may be a bit less than that. However, people do sometimes ask me the figure, how much should we be giving to the local work, which is always a question treasurers dread, because it's, it's like how long is a piece of string. But whenever I've done the sums, I tend to get to the figure of £250 a head, which, as it happens, let's see, if friends across the meeting, the 200 friends in the meeting in the area meeting were giving that would cover off the deficit. So basically, if friends aren't giving enough for the long-term sustainability of the area meeting, if they went up to 650 each, then we would be covered. We'd probably be a bit more than covered. But that's not the end of the course. But of course, you then have to remember that, I say there are about 200 friends in the area meeting. Well, actually, that starts from the membership number of 200. You then have to take off the members who have vanished, if the meeting is quite a few. Then you add on regular attenders who are gloriously generous with their giving, and that probably actually gets you back to about 200. So, okay. So, 250 is a sort of magic number because BYM also has a target for the meeting of friends across the Quakers in Britain, giving about £250 a head per year. But in the reality, but in this area meeting, the figure is under 100. Britain Union meeting have their fundraising departments to accumulate. So maybe I'll take a step back. How do we fund Britain Union meeting? So actually, I just need to put in one or two linkages now. How is Britain Union meeting funded? Is one good thing. Firstly, basically, actually has four sources. It has donations, and they can be either from individuals or meetings. And so that lot comes to about 20% of their income. So basically, they would like to fill their gap, their identified gaps. They would like to push that figure up. Their fundraising department can pick up which area meeting individuals give, as well as obviously which area meeting local meetings are. And so we do get statistics of how much friends from both sources in this area give to BOIM, and it is a figure under £100. So with I'm meant to be encouraging you to give the BOIM hat on, and so there needs to be more donations there. I should say, just for completeness, they also get money from legacies, which has been quite a substantial source of their income, but of course you can't predict it, and it's a figure that goes up and down like a yo-yo from year to year. They have a quiet company, which is basically their equivalent of Heining's income. This is hiring out friend's house and providing and running the bookshop cafe. That's quite a money spinner. That makes quite a profit of £1 million a year, I think. And there is a family investment, which they have quite extensive. So anyways, that just sort of gives you an idea of where that money comes from. And somewhere here, I have figures for 2023, which showed them they had income of 13 million. Doing that lot, which sounds really good, until we see that they had expenditure of 15 million. Which doesn't look so good. And their free reserves. So this is reserves where, so lots of the money Britain Union meeting holds has been given to them on the basis of, here's £1 million. Please spend it on on relieving poverty in my village. That's an extreme case, but people do give with qualifications. So BYM staff would be very clever in finding homes for this restricted money. But actually, restricted money is a fair chunk of their assets of 89 million. Not going to be bankrupt immediately, but they are spending more. Well, they are, because of our discernment as friends, spending more than they are getting in. And so they would be very keen, if I was giving this talk, which I am, to get this message over, that to give more money either individually or to see can your local meeting afford to send a bit of money. But before we get carried away with that, I need to go back to the structure diagram. Because actually, shown, because the big issue is how does actually area meeting get funded for its expenditure, which is largely on property. Most Quaker activities are funded locally, and utility bills are paid for locally, and internal maintenance is done locally. So there are a lot of things done locally. The main cost to area meeting is the heavy-duty maintenance of properties, new roofs, etc. But we also have the various bills for subscriptions, which we pay, so for safeguarding, for our website, for a whole range of things. All the sort of trustee costs of getting advice from professionals when we have to, not just producing the accounts. Also. So it isn't. So the central expenditure isn't just about property, but it is heavily about property. And how does it get funded? Because it's actually area meeting itself has virtually no. That's not true. It has some income. Basically, the income of area meeting is basically its rental income and investment interest. So these two are really area meeting. This lot is basically local meeting. So area meeting has income of about 37,000 to the centre automatically. It spends a lot more. That's as I said there. What we expect repairs and maintenance of at least 40,000. It's fine. And so basically, it needs to raise some of this. It needs some of the money that is raised locally needs to go to area meeting to help us pay the bills of area meeting and keep the thing afloat. That's not the case in every area meeting in the country. Those who've come from other area meetings may have come across a different system. So in this area meeting, donations are made to your local meeting. Almost all, quite small donations to the area, but basically donations are made to the local meeting. Area meeting and the gift aid goes to the local meeting as well. Even the area meeting actually organises that. It's another thing about centralising the accounting is we've also centralised the gift aid claim, which if any of you have ever tried to claim gift aid, you'll realise is a huge relief. But there are area meetings where actually donations go straight to the area meeting. And go straight to the area meeting, and the area meeting then pays pocket money out to the local meetings. Or housekeeping money, as it were. Which, sitting as an area meeting treasurer, you can see quite a few benefits to. I have floated the idea. The reason why it's maybe not such a good idea is actually I was talking about local meeting treasurers not needing to be bookkeepers, which is true, great benefit. However, they do really need to be salespeople, because part of their job is to persuade everyone else to give money. And the worry is that if local meetings are no longer collecting the money, who's going to be going around asking people to give money? So we need a system actually which siphons some of this money into area meeting. And as treasurer, every year I come up with a formula. It tends to vary from year to year to try and get to get things to balance. We probably need to get nearly 20,000, or around the order of 20,000 from here to here. In recent years, it's been more like 10 or 11,000. Every year I try and push the numbers up, and every year meetings come back with sob stories and hard luck stories of how it's quite impossible. I should say Eastbourne's figure for this year is 4,100, which is one of the highest of the figures, because you're actually quite a prosperous local meeting. And of course, there was a serious formula there as well, which I can show any of you. I'm conscious I've been talking about a stream of consciousness. I think I've covered everything I wanted to say. So, questions? Observations. This is nothing to do with Quaker's organisation is simple, and certainly when it comes to money, nothing is simple.
Is there any advantage to be had from area meeting collecting the money to go to BYM and sending it as a collective area meeting donation?
That's an interesting idea, and I'm sure there must be area meetings, but there are area meetings that do it, although it tends to be the ones where friends are giving directly to the area meeting. They will then add a BYM quotient, as it were, to that. So that is done elsewhere. I think there's a lot of merit to it. The system, the system at Lewis meeting in the days when we were more prosperous because we hadn't gone into this massive building project. The standard approach was actually the profits for the year, after paying all the bills and everything, would be sent to BYM. And then friends said, well, if the profit isn't as high as 10,000, we should send 10,000 anyway. And so for a year or two, we actually sent 10,000. The figure is now down to 3,000. That's what can be afforded. So we send money. Hastings have sent money from time to time. I'm not sure about the other meeting. No, Arkfield did last year. So it has been local meeting. To do it centrally, you need to basically, as you know, local meetings would have to give even more money to area meeting.
Yeah.
And extracting the money out, extract currently is hard enough.
Yeah. But I was thinking, from the person putting money in the plate, it's just one figure. It seems that to be advocating two sources and to be then giving independently. I would have thought one would miss out on, people won't do that, I would have thought.
Yeah. And
Because
that is-
people can see, oh yeah, we're paying to the local meeting, we're having a hearing, that's great. But when you can't, this is one of the reasons you're here, is that he's explaining about what BYM does, but if you don't know what BYM does, then why should we be giving to it? And also, that has to be something that people do off their own bat. I'm just thinking of a way of ensuring that there was at least something going. You know, it could be a smaller, maybe not the 250 that you're saying per head, but if there was some sort of cap or something that area meeting put on, saying you say we need 250 from, or if it was another 50 or something, that would be better than not saying 50.
Yeah. No, I think that is a good idea to reflect on. I think we should reflect on that more. I mean, there are individuals who are still direct.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure.
I mean, I should say, going back so far back as before my time, there was a system where actually local area meetings had to pay what's called a quota to BYM. And so there was a formula basically based on the number of members saying you have to send this money to BYM. It was extremely unpopular because every area meeting came up with the stories about, yes, but no, we might have 400 on the books, but actually only 60 of them are seen at meeting. That's the story. And so they abandoned it and said, well, because Friends are such good people, they will keep on giving the same amount of money, which they didn't. I mean, certainly adding a sort of a levy to what we asked local meeting centre area meeting, so the area meeting will then send a certain amount to BYM. I mean, I think
because I think I'm right in saying as a meeting we have no history of giving to BYM.
Yeah, I probably not. Certainly not in recent years.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So really, in a sense, we could get Friends giving more. Maybe you say, well, even if Friends give more, and we find we've got more than we need, we'll send the rest to BYM, and that's the alternative. Is you actually do it locally.
Sorry if my questions sound rather vague and naive. How many professional full-time staff does the organisation employ?
Britain Yearly Meeting has around a bit over 100, I think.
Professional full-timers?
No. Has a bit over, that's well, I'm not very good at numbers. Has a bit over 100 staff, not all of whom will be full-time. And depends what you mean by professional. I mean, there will be, most of the activities, there's no associated profession. I'm sure they have.
Well, accountancy and that sort of
They have.
organisation and so on. For example?
Yes, they have. They have the finance department runs to about 9 or 10 staff, all of whom now have some variety of qualification.
Yeah.
That's been a rather new innovation, but they discovered things would run rather better if the people who handle the finances and have qualified.
Do you have a press office?
There is a press office.
And is that professionally staffed as well?
I would guess that at least one or two of them would have that. Well, I'm sure they would have their experience. So they are, and I mean, of the over 100 staff, I think less than half are actually Quakers, because you just can't, as they said, you just can't find the expertise from within the society. So they bring in a lot of expertise from people who are not Quakers, but are in sympathy with what we do.
Is there a building which is head office?
There is indeed. There is on Euston Road in London.
Oh, that's
Friends House.
Yes, okay.
A magnificent 1930s Art Deco building, which, as I say, actually generates money for the society. Although from time to time it costs a lot to do art, but like all these things, so it generates that. I think the million a year is profit, but it may just be turnover, but I think the million is profit.
Sorry. Also, you might have said this, but I might have missed. Where does the bulk of your money come from? Where does the bulk of your money come from? And is it regular and what's the other word? You expect it every time.
Do you mean for Britain Yearly? So local meeting, you could at the local level we could say donations are including gift aid a bit over 30,000, renting our properties a bit over 30,000, hiring our rooms out that should be at least 15, and the rest of
And that's
interest.
fairly reliable.
And that is, donations are fairly reliable. They've been going a long way. They've been going down. They should have been going up. We think that's because people Friends haven't been reminded often enough that we need the money. And so, this is why I'm very happy to hear, just to remind you that the money is needed.
But this is
And-
of course for area and not for BYM, which you
This is fair, so I'll get into BYM in a moment. Room hire, well, we can always hire things out a bit more. And so, yeah. So that's but in terms of, so it's a fairly reliable set of flows. BYM is a bit more on a roller coaster, which is probably why they say they need such large reserves. I think the 96 million includes the capital cost of Fred's house and various other buildings, so I think in cash it's a lot less. Tell me anything. So it's at the national level, you have about 20, last time I saw the figures, about 20% from donations. It's reliable in the sense it doesn't change very much. In fact, it changes less than we want because it's just been fairly flat in nominal terms. Whereas actually, rather than going up with inflation, which is what you might hope it would have done. So there is a worry there. As I said, in real terms, giving has been falling. Legacies are, of course, totally unreliable, except that we know that over a certain number of years there will be a certain number of legacies. There have been years when the legacies figures have been 50%. People giving millions, 6-figure, 7-figure sums to the society on occasion. So then the next year they might find they get 50,000. So that's very volatile but big. The Quiet Company, obviously their income was wiped out totally during the pandemic because there wasn't any hospitality of any description going on. They've made a magnificent recovery. So we can sort of rely pretty well on them. Of course they are competing in a market, but they seem to be quite good at what they're doing. There is, I think within that, they rent out a building next to Fred's house, or Greater House. It looks like it's part of Fred's house, but it was built as a moneymaker. And so that's rented out currently to University College London, who keep havering about whether they want to keep it up. If they were to pull out, then they'd have to find another tenant, so that might hit them a few tens or hundreds of thousands that year. Investments, again, is a fairly, obviously, even though they are professionally managed, outsourced managed, of course. I think they're hard-based, no, they're math-based, I think. And ethically screened and all that, of course. So that's basically where it comes from.
Mine are 3 quick questions, sorry. Is there a managing director?
In a Quaker organisation.
That's one of
Wash your mouth out. No, there is actually a recording clerk who even does accidentally call himself the CEO from time to time. So yes is the answer, but we wouldn't dare call him that.
You talk about area, which is sort of geographic. What is the area?
So our area, it's Sussex East. So it's basically East Sussex, less Ditchling, less Brighton, if you think.
And how many areas are there in Great Britain?
60 something. Okay, sorry,
You're next.
Trish.
I just want to know about the Quiet Company. Is that actually a limited company?
It's a limited.
Operating separately?
It's a limited company, which so therefore is not itself a charity, but it is obviously ultimately owned by Britain Yearly. Well, it is owned by Britain Yearly Meeting, but it has a separate board.
Is it Quaker run?
It's not the Quaker. Well, it actually has an executive board, so not all of them will be Quakers, but it also has trustees.
So it's
who are Quakers.
the company has trustees. The company has directors, surely.
It has directors. It has trustee directors. But yes, they are directors, and they are the directors. So the non-executive directors are Quakers.
Before anybody else leaves, can I just say that we've got columns in the cupboard for both standing order donations and gift aid.
Good.
Fantastic description of everything. Really enjoyed it. I'm not a financial person at all. Turn the board over and tell me what is the number you need.
250 a month.
250. The problem is that it's on average. Of course, there are many friends who can't afford to give 250.
That I understand.
There are many other friends who give and offer 250.
And
if you average it out,
so
250 locally and 250 nationally.
So that's 500.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that works out at what, £1.30 a day? Yeah. How much is that a month? I'm not very good on figures.
£10 a
Just
week.
go for a fine.
Sorry?
A week.
£10 a week.
£10 a week, which is £50 a month. Put the figure on the board.
What is this figure?
What the weekly figure? So
Yeah, the monthly figure.
£10 a week.
Yeah.
So 40 to 45 a month.
And that covers.
And that covers everything.
That would cover everything, yeah.
Isn't that simple?
Yeah.
What is that figure though? What are we looking at?
That's what they want.
So,
That's what we should be saying.
Who wants?
Yeah,
Who wants?
Quakers.
the Quakers.
And where does it come from?
You.
You're saying that each member should pay £10. £10.
If they can afford it, yes.
Is that members or a
See, because I've been a Quaker since what? Is it
2002,
2002? Yeah. This is the first time anybody has said this is the figure we need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we need.
It all helps.
yeah, it is difficult. I mean, it's huge.
Well,
to get to the £250 local is a hugely complicated exercise, full of flaky assumptions on the way. But I've done the exercise various times,
Yeah.
starting at different points, and I always end up at about 250. So I think it's about that.
But that's easy.
Somebody's obviously done the
Well,
same nationally.
no.
This wouldn't include anything the local meeting needs.
That includes local. That includes this meeting here, and includes and includes the share of our meeting.
So
A hearing aid in here, it wouldn't include that. That would be extra to that.
The hearing loop, would that be part of your local? It would be covering that. I mean, that's 1 year you have to buy a hearing loop. Next year you have to paint the library.
Kitchen.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
There's going to be expenses every. So money. Local meeting. Your local meeting seems to spend about 10,000 a year. That should, yeah. And so you need to cover that. You then need to cover your contribution to area meeting, which is probably about half that. So looking at that, therefore, if we're saying 250 local, it's about £80 will be siphoned off. Would be siphoned off for the central staff, leaving you about 160, 170 to run.
sorry, I'm still.
confused now.
Yeah. So, in theory, if we were to pay £500 a year,
Yeah.
the books would balance, and there would be a surplus.
There would be the books, yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
That's
in
simple.
theory. In theory.
Who is we? Sorry.
We
All of us.
All of us,
so basically it is.
Well,
it is-
Individual or all of us?
individually.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah. See that's what I've been confused for the last 20 years. Yeah. Clear text.
I thought historically that you could put in a request where your money went.
You still can. We try to avoid it because it's complicated enough as it is. But actually, that was another system, wasn't it? Yes. Again, some years ago, your treasurer would actually give you something called the schedule. In fact, they still sort of exist, but less and less. And so basically, you would say, okay, I want to give £500 this year, and I want 250 to go to Christian Daily Meeting, 250 to go to the local meeting. And that is another way of doing it. And maybe we should actually, if not taking it, maybe we should try resurrecting that.
It's
John
simple.
Fairley's nodding his head. There were probably good reasons why we moved away from it.
As you say, life is complex enough for treasurers without the schedule.
Yeah.
Because it isn't just two boxes of money, it could be a dozen.
Yes, people then added the cat's home and various things like that to it. So yes, it's probably there are good reasons why we moved away from that. But it is something actually you can still do. You could still say, here's my £500. I want 250 to go to the daily meeting. Your treasurer might curse, but that would happen.
Just for clarity, John, so we've got this figure now at the £45 a month, which is everything that area meeting needs and everything that BMYM needs, but it doesn't include what our local meeting needs. Is that
Yes,
right?
no, exactly.
It does.
It's
Yeah.
250 local,
Okay,
250 national.
Why is it taking 20 years to get to such a simple figure?
I still don't understand either exactly that point.
It's called
If you're-
unprofessional.
If the money's going to area, it's not going
As
to
we
be
witnessed.
local.
Not all of it's going to area.
Not all of it's going to no. I mean, it comes into
Part of
local,
it will.
and then effectively, I as area meeting treasurer then come and tax you.
Yes.
So,
We all give
And
our money
over.
to the local meeting, and then the local meeting will be asked for some money by area meeting, which will come out of the money that we've given to local meeting.
But the
That's so simple.
250 for national
It's so
is
simple.
250.
yeah, that would go to the national.
But the area meeting
very
isn't
clear.
So the way we've done it, you would pay it to the local meeting,
Yeah.
and then the local
They-
meeting would
they
have to
would
pay
pay.
part of it.
Part of it, okay. That's why. I
We
didn't
would
know.
say, I pay
Yeah.
so much for the BYM as well.
And so as I say, like this year it's about 4,100 we're asking these small firms to
Yeah.
contribute. You're probably being subsidised less than anyone else, so the figure probably
We can work.
the amount you should be paying is probably about 4,100, whereas I have to confess most local meetings are paying less than they should be.
Which, so again, I'm not good with figures. 4,000 a year. 4,000 a year is how much a month or a week rather? Hmm?
It's an annual amount.
Yeah. So 4,000 is how much a week?
£80 a week, isn't it?
Right.
80, yeah. But the difficulty and why people are not keen on giving these numbers is it makes an assumption about how many friends would actually be giving anything. And so
You don't have to give the minimum.
This figure is based on there being 200 friends in the area meeting on average giving that amount. As I said, there are membership numbers about 200, but some of the members are notional members, you never see them. On the other hand, so, it includes regular attenders. So it doesn't include regular attenders who you would add back on. Whether you would get to, if you stripped out all the all the disappeared members and added in the active attenders, whether you would get to 200 or not, I'm not sure. You might end up with a figure less than that. So 250 may be a bit less than the reality. That is one of the uncertainties. That's why it's a very crude figure.
Well, then next year ask for more.
Yeah.
Seems to me, I mean,
Are you full-time staff, by the way?
Area meeting we have no full-time staff. We employ 3 cleaners, a children's worker, all part-time.
So you have another job then, really?
Well, before I retired, I had
Oh,
another.
you're retired, sorry.
And at the end of the year, I retired this
Yes.
job because I'm limited to 9 years' service, and I've already done 8.5. So at the end of the year, there will be a new treasurer who will probably see this and turn their hands up high and say, "Why on earth did that Donash God say? Give these numbers."
I was going to suggest we should go for lunch. Are you able to join us? John?
Yes, I
In
am,
which
yes.
case, conversation can continue with food.
Thank you.